All right, hello everybody. Today we are going to answer what is the cost of a token? Are these labs like Anthropic, which we are going to take as an example today, profitable? Not just from the sense of their subscriptions, like the Claude Max subscription, which we absolutely know is not profitable for them, given that I can show right here, I am getting 2.53 billion tokens a month, which is around 1,600 to about $2,500 a month, and I only pay $200 a month. I know a bunch of people, like I can count very, very many of them that are purchasing like 5, 10, 20 subscriptions and using all of them in parallel constantly. And these people are probably costing, each one is probably costing about 2,500, like each subscription, 2,500 a month. And if they have 20 subscriptions, that's 50,000 a month based on like a very small amount of money. We know that, but is the inference itself, the API pricing, is it profitable? We're going to try to answer that today. And I want to preface this by saying this data is not public. This is speculation, and I am going to just basically break the problem down and put together answers that I can find on the web to approximate something that might be true. And the reason I do this is I am dependent on this technology, and I will continue to be dependent on this technology. It is very good. A lot of people might say that it's slop. Yes. It is inaccurate. Yes. It has problems. Yes. It is not AGI. Yes. It won't get us there. That's true. But it's very good, and you can automate a lot of things with it. You can do a lot of things with it. And for somebody that wants to grow and do a lot and experience a lot, we need to spend money on this technology in order to expand our capacity to work and to do creative things. So we need to know how much is this going to cost when the subsidies run out, when the venture capital funding runs out, and when they need to start making a true profit. In order to answer this question, we need to break down the problem into multiple steps. So first, we need to know how much does it cost to get a model the size of Opus on a GPU or GPUs and servicing a single customer, one customer. To answer that, we need to think, how big is Opus? If we go to the artificial analysis website, we can see these are the smartest models. The closest models to Opus that we know the size of are Kimi K2 Thinking, DeepSeek v3.2, and GLM 4.7. GLM is 358 billion parameters. Kimi K2 is 1 trillion, and DeepSeek is 680 billion, give or take. We don't know how big these models are, but we do know that the last generation of the GPT models was rumored to be over a terabyte or a trillion parameters. Same for Google. And we are going to put Opus in that same category. We are going to assume Opus is 1 terabyte. We are going to assume Sonnet is whatever closest to it, which is 300 billion parameters. And we are going to assume Haiku is 100 billion parameters. It's not even on this list here. Now, how much storage or GPUs do we need to run one single copy of Opus? The weights. If it is 1 trillion parameters, it will be 2 terabytes to have the entire model running on GPU. We're going to assume that they're running it in FP8, which is half of the size. So 1 terabyte just to run the model. The KV cache itself is anywhere between 20 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but we're going to average it at 100 gigabytes. Now, we need to answer, what GPUs are these labs using? What we know is that the H200 is the most popular for this use case, and the pricing of that is about $40,000. Assuming that they're getting a discount, 25%, let's call it $30,000. So in order to run, and that has 141 gigabytes. So if we take 8 of those, we have a little bit over a terabyte, and I assume we can also have the full KV cache for a single user. We are going back in here, and I'm going to include the sources and the documents, and maybe you can pick at this and find a better answer. So we're going to assume that they need about 8 GPUs to run the model at FP8 with full context servicing one user. And we are going to assume that the Opus model is 1 trillion parameters, 1,000 billion. And what else goes into the cost of these GPUs? Not just the GPUs, but the inference. Electricity. So a single H200, H100 is 700 watts, and we need 8 of them. So 8 times 700, it's going to be something like 500. I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not being super precise now, but let's assume it's 5 kilowatts. So 5 kilowatts times 6 cents, which is way below the average in Texas, where Anthropic has its labs. It's still way below. It should be around 8 or 9, but we are assuming that, well, here I have it as 8, so we're going to go with 8, which is still below. And like we said, we have 8 GPUs for a single user, and then for each extra user, we are going to need about 1 GPU. It doesn't work like that. In reality, we need powers of 2, so they will have 64 GPUs or 128. Et cetera, et cetera. They need powers of 2 to run them at full speeds and use tensor parallelism. So now we know that for a single user, it's going to take 8 GPUs to run Opus. So 8 GPUs, 35 cents an hour times whatever, let's say 24 hours a day, because they're running it nonstop 24 hours a day. And we are starting to get some big numbers. Now we also have to think, how many monthly active users does Anthropic have? So to answer that, we can go and look at how many people that they've hired. So I will open the monthly active users right here. So Anthropic reports, this was in March, something like 20 million monthly active users. At this point, it's probably 30. We're going to go with 30. So 30 million monthly active users, 1 million a day, and about 50,000 users per hour. So 50,000 users, let's call that 50,000 GPUs just for Opus, right? Some people are using Sonnet, some people are using Haiku. So we are just going to say that the whole thing is 50,000 GPUs, give or take. 50,000 GPUs times $30,000. And you could see that these numbers are starting to get ridiculous. 50,000 GPUs times 700. Well, I actually want to do this one. So 50,000 times 700 is 35 million times 0.08 is 2.8 million an hour on electric costs. Now think about that number. That's just the electricity. You also need to cool these things. You also need to service them, clean them up, make sure that they're connected to the internet, make sure that they're all running online. You need people that are managing all of that. And that takes us to our next question. How many employees does Anthropic have? They have about 2,500 based on reports from this year or like last year, so the last 365 days. So 2,500 people work for Anthropic. Anthropic is in the Bay Area. What is the average monthly salary in the Bay Area? We can ask that. Monthly, yearly salary in Bay Area. And we can multiply that by 2,500. So this is 128,000. This is an AI lab, so we're going to assume it's 200,000. So 200,000 times 2,500. And we have $500 million a year in just their employees. This is just for inference. They also train these models, and training takes a lot more compute. It's a lot more intensive. It goes on for 3 months nonstop, 24 hours a day, give or take. It seems like their release cycle is something like 3 months to 6 months. For the flagship models, it's like 6 months. For just in general models, it's like 3 months, maybe 2. So you can start putting those numbers together, and we have a few answers to our questions. They say that their API pricing is profitable. Now, I don't have any reason to doubt them. I'm not saying that they're lying, and I want to preface this again, that this is speculation. I don't have these answers. I don't know. I'm just digging around the numbers and trying to put together something so I can answer a question for myself of, is this company profitable if they continue on pricing their models the way that they do? Not even talking about the subscription. That's like a whole other thing that we know for sure is not profitable. So we can go over to all of this is going to be in the description. This is the pricing chart, and we are just looking at these three. So base in, so 1,000,000 tokens in for Opus is $5. Cash hit for 5,000,000 tokens, right cash, and then out is $25 per 1,000,000 tokens. So, and the rest are like 20, 30, 50% smaller or less. Now we can go on to here. We're taking just Opus because I personally use it the most. This is the pricing that comes from Anthropic. We're not going to change that. We're going to need 8 GPUs. It's going to be 80 tokens a second, and prefill ratio. So all these numbers you can look into on your own time. Weights overhead. So this is taking in everything that I could find online or I could put together, and we have this table. So this table has various scenarios, and each scenario is a mix of these numbers, assuming, for example, that they are running it in full precision, assuming that they're running it in FP8, 4-bit, 2-bit, etc. And we are applying various numbers, and we're going to try to find the average here. So really the context window is about 200K is the limit. The more context is in the more tokens are in context, the more expensive it is to run this because of the prefill speeds. Like there's extra computation that needs to happen. And so you can play around with these numbers as well. 1 second, where is the GPU? We're going to keep that there. So all of this here is taking into account the hourly run rate of whatever it is that we're trying to see. And we're looking at the margins. Are these margins good? Are there any margins that are good? So from what I can see, at least with these numbers that I'm throwing, I don't know for sure. They have contracts with large corporations. They have a bunch of deals. But I don't imagine that they're making that much more money on corporations than they do on individuals, specifically because corporations use more tokens and they have better deals and they sign yearly contracts. So let's take a look at just some potential scenarios, and we can calculate from there. We're going to start with 8-bit precision, and we are going to say that the context is at 16,000. So this is just like one general chat, pretty quick. And we can take a look. How much is it going to take for power per hour? 41 cents. We went over how you get to this number. And let's see, we have taxes, right? We need to apply taxes to everything. Everything that they're charging us is being taxed at like whatever, 10 to 20, maybe 5% if they're lucky. They have overhead. How much does it cost to maintain all of this? They have infrastructure that they need to pay for. I have contracts linked in here as well that you can find. So they have contracts with Amazon. I forgot what the name of the exact contract. They have contracts with Google for their TPUs. And we can actually look at the global assumptions to see the what is it right here? So the TPU for the TPU chips, because you could go and rent them on Google, assuming that you are getting a 1-year commitment, is 2.940 per TPU, and then you have to have a bunch of TPUs. So this is per hour, right? Per hour pricing. And so when you start calculating, and this is 0.66, so 6 cents per hour. And we can take a look at like all of this other stuff. You can, again, look at it in your own time. I'm going to go back to the Opus here and look at the prices. So all in, if we calculate like the cost of staff, the cost of training the models over that period of time, the electricity, the GPUs, the water, all this other stuff, the taxes, we are looking at some ridiculous prices. So really the cost of 1,000,000 tokens in, right? This is actually 1,000,000 tokens out is $144, assuming all of these numbers are true. And we have a whole range here. But generally the range is going between $80 per 1,000,000 tokens out. There is nothing below $80 here. And I think I've broken this down pretty thoroughly based on the sources. What does that mean for you? So assuming that it is $100 per 1,000,000 tokens out, and let's find the smallest. I think I might be able to sort it. I'm not going to do that right now. I don't want to figure it out. But Let us look. So I see like 50, 60 is the smallest, 69, 68, 69. That's the smallest. Yeah, there's nothing smaller than that. And this might be 2 bits, right? This might be 2-bit quantization. So let's assume it is $50 per million tokens in, $100 per million tokens out for Opus. So if we take that 50, 100 models, write 5% what they read. So if they read 1 million tokens, they write 50,000 tokens. So if we want 20, 20, so 20 million in, 1 million out on average, right? Let's say that's one day. You spend 20 million in, 1 million out per day. This is 1/3 of what I spent. So I'm going to go with what I spent, 100 million tokens in times whatever the, let's say times 50. 100 million times 50. That's $5,000 a day. And I'm being extremely charitable here. This is like below my worst scenario, right? This is me being extremely charitable. I don't see how they are making money here. I don't think that it's possible that they're making money, specifically because when you look at you look at their income reports or what they're saying when they're going to be profitable 2028, 2029, let's assume that they are profitable by 2030. Positive. Either they're increasing the prices significantly, figuring out how to run almost everything on tiny models, like outsourcing almost all the tasks on tiny models. They're abstracting away from the end user what model that they're using, similar to GPT. I mean, OpenAI isn't doing that really. They do let you pick, but there is that auto mode. And if people, which I assume a lot of people will use auto, right? Most of the people paying for pro subscription will use auto. So they're abstracting it, they're hiding everything, they're running 2-bit quantization. They're still having to pay $50 per million tokens in, $100 per million tokens out, if we're talking about the real cost of this. So that is, for Opus, right, significantly more expensive. We need to get that. We need to understand that, because we are not going to get 3 billion tokens a month on $200, right? Even assuming we are, their prices are right, their API is profitable, they are making a profit, we are still using $1,600. This is a low month because I started paying for it pro as well, like GPT Pro. This is a low month, but I usually spend $2,500. $2,500 a month for $200. So they're already it's what? How much is that? 5%. I'm paying 5%, right? And then assuming that this is real, that this is correct, these numbers are correct, I am paying 5% of that. So I'm barely paying cents on the dollar to run my inference. Tomorrow, or in the next few days, I'm going to make a video about buying a GPU, how to run models and all this stuff, the different choices and prices you have, because I went through this journey. I bought these, I'm going to go on my website here, and I'm going to go, Sybil, where is it? SibilSolutions.ai. And I will the reason I'm going here is I want to figure out the pricing. I bought 8 3090s. That's 200 gigabytes of VRAM. So that's less than 1/6 of what I would need to run Opus at home. And it cost me $12,000, and it cost me per month about $200 in electricity. And I have all of my GPUs power capped. So if I were actually running my GPUs at full, and if I were running larger models, it would have costed me minimum $60,000 to run Opus at home. Minimum, assuming I'm using all 3090s. And in electricity, so 6 times 200, that's $1,200 a month in electricity. So take that over a 5-year span, $12,000 a year, $600, $1,200 a month in electricity. And you can see that, again, it's $2,500 a month of usage to do what I'm doing. And we can go here. We are in the blog, building my own home lab. So this has some data around the cost of what I did. So here are the specifications, and here's the cost breakdown. So 8 3090s cost me $7,100. The 512 gigabytes of DDR4 cost me $2,200, and then all of this other stuff, which was averaged around $12,000. Now it's worth $18,000, and it's going to continue to increase in pricing. And so when we start thinking, how many tokens are you using? What models are we using? We need to learn, one, to use all of the models. any models, anything that is giving you like an outsized return in terms of your usage, you should pay for it. If you have the money, of course. So you should pay for GLM, you should pay for Minimax, you should pay for GPT, and you should use all of them. And you should pay for OpenRouter, and you should use every single model that comes out so you can figure out and learn how to work with them. Because if you don't, it's going to go crazy. It's going to be so expensive for you that you're not going to be able to code or work or do anything. And we know for a fact that the economy is getting worse. Jobs are getting like less common, specifically in the software realm. It's like juniors are having a harder time getting into the market and all this. So this is only going to get worse and worse as time goes on, or at least, you know, we can predict that it's going to get worse and worse based on the historical information that we have. This is like a little bit of a schizo post for me. I feel like I'm ranting, I'm just like saying stuff, and maybe none of this is true. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe all of this is just me lying, me doing the math wrong. But realistically speaking, we are using way too much tokens for what we're paying, and we are building a habit, and we need to control that habit and get used to working with smaller models for all of our small tasks, larger models for all of our complicated tasks. We need to set budgeting limits, start thinking. We need to figure out how can we offload this to compute that we own at home, because we will be screwed. If we do not have compute at home, we are screwed. The only people that will be able to work digitally in the future are people that have the compute. And the only people that will have the compute, if everybody keeps using these subscriptions, is Anthropic, Google, etc., OpenAI. And I'm not criticizing these companies. These companies are providing something that is valuable. They are doing research. They are helping in many, many ways. I'm just saying that we need to be careful. Hopefully this video is helpful. I really want you guys to understand the economics of this. I am speaking from experience because I built this at home and I ran this at home, and I can even show like what this looks like. This month I've paid $100, a little more than $100 in electricity, and I could see that I have used 330 kilowatts. 330 kilowatts. And I am one person. And 330 kilowatts times 6 cents, and like, let's go 330. 30 times 0.06 is $20 a month. And these are small, tiny local models. And we can take a look at them here. I've used way more than this realistically, but let's assume that this is right. We could see here that these prices are just unreasonable. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe because I want to get to 100,000 this year. I really do, and I will do it. I just need your help, and I can't do it alone. And thank you for watching. Hopefully this is helpful.